I'm so excited about this next panel. Last year we had something called Guys Who Get It, and this is kind of Guys Who Get It 2.0, the 97% speak. We have 4 male creative directors, Rob Schwartz, Scott McAfee, Jeff Miller, and PJ Perora. And there's a little treat today in terms of how they're going to structure this, which you will find out momentarily. So please welcome Xanthi Wells, our moderator, and the panel.
Oh.
I think that's 2.
Which way should I hear? Okay. Hi.
Is that for me? I'm going to tweet that. Definitely tweeting that. I don't even know what to do with that. Just roll.
Okay, good. Everyone can hear me. Welcome to this panel. We've all been really excited. Been chatting with all the guys in the weeks leading up to this, and just trying to, think of provocative questions that you'll all be interested in hearing kind of the flip side. We've been hearing a lot from the ladies during the conference, and this is a great time to hear from the boys, the dudes. So the first part of this, the guys will bring up a special lady that they've mentored onto the stage and talk a little bit about their relationship, how they started their mentorship, how they met, how it's been important to them. So PJ, do you want to start?
All right, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I want to bring to the stage our ECD here in San Francisco, Jamie Robinson. Where is she? Jamie and I started to work together 5 years ago when the agency started, like 2 months in. She went there, she joined as an ACD, and she, as the agency evolved and grew, she was naturally kind of taking the next step up and next step up. Now she runs the entire creative direction. She won 3 Grand Prix at Cannes this year and an Emmy. So it's awesome to be as a creative director. It's awesome to be able to steal the credits from the work that she did.
My special lady is Melissa Castelou. Melissa is an art director, and she was previously living in Austin, and I tried very hard to recruit her to my agency, and we were all ready to hire her, and then we lost one of our biggest accounts, and I couldn't make the offer, which was very disappointing. But we've stayed in touch, and she moved to San Francisco a year ago and is now freelancing.
Well, I'd like to bring up Rebecca Rivera, who's also one of the planners for this event.
Yay, Rebecca.
She swears that I mentored her at some point, but I'm pretty sure it was the other way around a lot of the time.
Cool.
Well, I don't have to bring up my mentee because it's Xanthi. And I remember walking by Xanthi's desk at Shy in LA, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. And I just saw a lot of cool stuff, a lot of beautiful type, a lot of beautiful ideas, a lot of beautiful art direction. And we were working, I think, on a pitch. I think it was for WAMU.
Mm-hmm.
And she just had the right sensibility. And I said, "Hi, Xanthi, I'm Rob, and I just love everything you're doing. Let's just go do stuff." And I think from that point forward, that's kind of the way everything's been on our project. So
yeah.
I'm really happy to be here. I've worked with Rebecca too, and these guys are fantastic. So I think let's get it going.
Cool. So we'll start with the ladies. And I'd love to hear about, what's been sort of the most valuable part of having your relationship with your mentor. Have there been ups and downs? How has it gone? Any stories you want to share? Becca?
Go ahead.
Or
So for me, hello?
There you
Hi.
go.
So for me, it's been really helpful to have, I guess, an out-of-office mentor. Every time Scott and I hang out, it really feels like hanging out. We were both kind of addicts, I think, to volunteering in Austin. So we were constantly at the Ad Awards and getting there first and talking to judges. So learning from his example has been awesome, especially kind of focusing on communicating with other people so we can communicate with our audiences. So that was kind of like the big lesson there.
I'm just so lucky to have kind of come into contact with PJ Pereira, who's an awesome human being. I kind of think he's like I described him the other day to someone as he's like a creative Gandhi who also is a black belt in Kung Fu. And it's kind of true. And, it's funny because PJ mentioned I came in as ACD and then had my second child. I came back from maternity leave and was promoted to CD, and then was actually on the verge of asking for part-time work. And I said, PJ, we were on a shoot, and I said, I got to talk to you about something. And he said, oh, great, because I have to talk to you about something too. And we took a walk, and thankfully I let him speak first. And he said, and he said, you're doing really well, and I really love, and the work you're doing, and we have such a great relationship, and I want to talk to you about maybe taking on more responsibility. And he said, well, what did you want to talk to me about? I was like, nothing. But I'm so glad I let him speak first. And one of the things that I find so valuable, Xanthi asked, is, what is the most important piece of advice he's given you? Can you guys still hear me? Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I rack my brain because I'm like, there's a lot of great things that PJ has helped me with. And he's my boss and my mentor at the same time, so it's a really interesting relationship. But I think the most important thing is, and I know this isn't possible for everybody, but I don't think there's been a single time that I have not called PJ or texted him or chatted him or poked him on the shoulder and said, I need to speak to you. Can I ask you your opinion on something, or I'm really angry about something, that he has not given me his time. And it's been so amazingly valuable to learn the job of ECD on the job with someone who really, really gives a shit about your development and who you are as a person. So I just thank you very much. I'm going to cry too, so I'm going to pass this on first.
It's like Oprah.
So Jeff and I met under very difficult circumstances. I was already at a very small agency, and it was basically psychological warfare. So a lot of the horror stories that we've been exchanging informally, I was actually living. And when Jeff came in, one of the things that was great was he first made himself really accessible and very human. We bonded over heavy metal. And it was important, you got to have those connections. That's the stuff, that's the real social glue. And the first thing that he did that really helped was he'd been there not very long, but he's very astute, and he validated the experience that I was having so that I knew it wasn't just me. And that was really helpful. And the next thing that he did that was really critical was that he told me, this is what you can do, this is what your responsibility is in this situation, X, Y, and Z, and here's the part that you can't do anything about. This isn't your burden. You do what you can do. If the agency can figure it out and become less dysfunctional, that's great, but you don't have to solve all these other problems. And I have to say, as any manager, male or female, to be able to see what's going on, to not sugarcoat it, tell you what you need to do, and be very comfortable with you seeing that landscape and making the decision on your own with their help. So I think the most valuable thing that came out of that was Jeff mentored me, and I ended up mentoring him and convincing him to leave. And I followed him soon afterward, and then we became co-mentors and partners in a business social goodness, which is how Speed Mentoring came to this conference.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Great. And I don't need two mics. Okay. Rebecca brought up something interesting, the notion of sugarcoating advice or guidance. Have you ever felt as guys that you've had to sugarcoat your feedback, or especially with these ladies?
I would say that happens across the board a lot of times, just in a promotions-oriented culture, where you're sort of you're trying to guide people up what they think is a ladder that matters, and you're saying, well, you'll get that promotion, you'll get it, and I think that's a form of sugarcoating in and of itself, because you're not really talking about the work at that point. If you have a very promotions-oriented culture, I think it's hard to stay focused on the merit stuff, because people are chasing money, and that matters in people's lives. But in terms of criticizing people's work, I think that's part of the whole collaborative chemistry thing. I think you have to have a lot of good chemistry with someone to be really honest with them in a positive way, and that takes time.
Yeah.
Those relationships take time to develop, I think.
I find that I've had to sugarcoat advice or critiques more for men. Because I think they're a little less, they are a little less introspective, just a little less, and often what I have to do is say, okay, this isn't working, you're kind of mad and you're disappointed, and here's what's going on. Well, have you thought about your role in this? Because that's something that it's a lot of times I think women think about all the time, and men do not. Everything's not their responsibility or not our, you know what I mean? It's coming from the outside. So it's like, okay, don't forget your role in the dynamics of this, or your role in how you presented it, or how you did the work. So I've found it to be the opposite.
Interesting. Rob?
Same question?
Yeah, why not?
Sugarcoating? Sometimes you have to. I mean, I think it just depends on the person. I think that's. I guess sometimes, you know, there are certain people that you can just take the bat out and just say, "This is bad," boom. And there are some people you have to go, "Let's walk on this. Walk with me," and then you bring them to the issue.
Cool.
We walked and batted.
Yeah. Sometimes I cried a lot. And PJ, how have you felt? Have you ever had to sugarcoat anything for Jamie, or do you feel like she can take it?
Is this so hard because I'm right here? Like everything. Oh my God.
I think that I've had to sugarcoat things for people, but more based on their personality than genders. And with Jamie's, it's probably the easiest relationship, because I made sure that I'm gonna spend some time with her and talk about things that the best advice I could give her. And I think that we built a relationship that is so much based on trust that, you know, when I feel open, and it's her merit that, you know, every time I have something that she needs to work on, she feels more eager to hear than anyone I've ever worked with. So that's actually very, very fulfilling.
Cool. And maybe for the ladies, has there been a certain project or something that's happened directly as a result of your relationship with your mentor that?
I already told you about mine.
I'm still waiting for Scott to hire me.
There we go. Noted.
Gotta get on that. You know, I think all of the creative work that I've done at Prayer Nodell has been, our relationship is both as, you know, a mentor-mentee, social, working within the agency, and creative. So I would say everything that I've worked on at Prayer Nodell has come because of our relationship and working together. Specifically, you know, one of the thing that we did really well this year with on the award circuit, and also from an effectiveness standpoint with the client, which is the Beauty Inside. That came from one night we were selling the first Inside. This was way back when we first started the first one, which I don't know if anybody saw, but it was kind of a thriller, and there was a girl, and she was kind of tough, and she got locked in a room, and she had to get her way out, and it was a social film, and we had to do some pretty scary things for that. Like she had to be scared, and she had to be tough, and she had to, you know, punch her way around the room, and so we said, you know, PJ said, okay, one night, he's like, before we were selling it, what happens if the client doesn't want to go as far as we need to go for this? And he said, okay, let's sit down and let's think of, and there were a couple of us there. He said, let's think of, like, you know, as many different examples as we can, that it's called Inside, it's social film. What does it look like if it's a bro film? What does it look like if it's a road trip comedy? And that night we also came up with The Beauty Inside, and that was a year and a half before it launched. And so I think that relationship, that trust, and that willingness to work together through things I can see a direct piece of work that came right out of that was really important to a lot of people's careers and important to us emotionally because it was really fun to make.
Great. Any bumps in the road for your mentorship that have been challenges? People got upset that you had that special relationship. Has it ever, raised eyebrows? It's strange. Can you tell me if there's been any challenges or it's been smooth sailing?
You're talking to guys or?
Guys.
Well, I guess I could address this one. I think there was, there's a thin line between therapy and conference, isn't there? I'm really, wow. There was a time where I think Xanthi, and I can embarrass you here, I mean, Xanthi was really rising and taking on a project. We were working on a specific Pepsi project, and she had kind of grabbed the bull by the horns, and she was relentless. And it was really interesting to watch because you had, at that time, the group creative director should have been, running this thing, but here was Xanthi running this thing. And for me, I was sort of feeling like, I think she's kind of amazing. We need to give her more. Just let her do it. And there was a moment that was quite awkward because you have this hierarchy of the GCD and then Xanthi was the creative director. And I had a very tough conversation, with a guy. And I said, well, dude, she is doing it. She is blazing the trail. And, it kind of goes back to what Lee Iacocca once said, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And with Xanthi, it's like, just follow, get out of the way, and then, line up behind her because she's going to make it happen. So I think it was tough, but I think it was because of merit. I think it was because of what you were doing. It was easy to say, she's doing it, and we're going to follow her.
Yeah. And I guess just to share a little bit, with Rob, it wasn't a mentorship that I ever knew would happen. It really kind of came out of ideas and passion. And, little did I know that 7 years after meeting him, I would, have one of the most creative, interesting, inspiring people in my back pocket. And I still send him work and is this good? Do you like it? And I left Shy a year ago, and I trust his judgment. I have absolute respect for him. But it was a great feeling to watch it build because it started out as kind of, hey, I like your ideas, cool art direction. Lee likes this stuff too, and built from there. And I was just thinking about it, the challenges of it. And I don't think that there has been. I'm sure there's people that are, upset about a close relationship. But, for the most part, I think a lot of people are inspired by it. And a lot of my, females at my level feel excited when they hear about my relationship with Rob because they see how valuable it is to me and how much it's influenced my career and choices that I make and how to manage people, which is always a really hard thing for creative people to learn. And watching from one of the best people has really, been a foundation that is invaluable to me. So
I may have to pull a Costanza and just leave it out. That's it, Jerry, I'm done.
Any other things you guys want to share about your relationships, or I can ask you a couple random questions. What?
Bring it on.
Okay. I guess while the girls are on stage, has there been anything about them in particular as women that you feel you've witnessed hold them back or not, make it easier for them, or somehow you've seen their gender influence the path of their career? And has there been anything that you've helped kind of guide or mentor that's, changed the trajectory of their path?
I can start. It's very awkward that she's right behind us.
I've been ignoring her.
Yeah, we have had a couple of discussions, not only with Jamie, but I had in my first agency back in Brazil, I was kind of doing the math. It's out of 5 people that reported to me, 3 were women, and I felt I think that was a good rehearsal to how we are doing that now. But it's one thing that I learned, and I don't know if it feels right or wrong, but it's the pain of having to make decisions between spending time with your family and work seems to be feel heavier with women than men. not that men don't care about it, but it's like it feels heavier. It's an issue that I had to have more conversation with my female mentees, and I think that the best thing that the most honest conversation that we had along the way. At some point, this conversation happens, and it will happen again and again. I know that it will happen many times. The most honest thing that I could tell Jamie, and I could tell you guys here as well, is that the guilt that comes with it is not real. It's, I was raised by a very hardworking mom. And so it has the tip has nothing to do with work. It's more very personal. I was raised by a very hardworking mom that made more money than my dad at some point in her life. She was, hardly there, and I could tell that she was feeling guilty. And she was talking to me kind of recently. Now they have my son, and saying, hey, but how do you feel? Do you feel that I should have spent more time with you? And I thought, you know what, Mom, I don't remember ever feeling neglected. I remember being the son of a rock star mom that was doing these amazing things, and I was so proud. So the time that you're not spending, the time that you're not spending with the kids or the family, it's time that they are going to use to brag about you. So keep that in mind, because it's going to be, this guilt is fake. It's just on your mind only.
I would say for Melissa, there aren't any obstacles at all that I've perceived for her success. And when I do hire her,
If I don't get her first.
I don't foresee any obstacles. She's very self-assured. She's very confident. Some of that's generational, but she's just very straightforward. Somebody mentioned the idea how women often apologize for things, and Melissa doesn't apologize for a damn thing. And then kind of going back to the previous question, when I do hire her and when I show her extra attention in the agency, which I think we're both looking forward to, it's not an issue for us because our ECD is a woman. I handed the creative department over to Sean 2 years ago. Up until one of them just left, our next layer of CDs, GCDs are women, and my partner, another owner of the agency, is a woman. So it's baked into the culture, and a woman has always been at the top of the agency, and that is huge because if you don't have that, you have what a lot of folks have talked about, where you have to coach people and you have to prep people and you have to kind of do all this gesticulating, instead of just having a culture that is more understanding and more just intuitive. Mm-hmm. It's not even an issue.
But I think you have to remind people, though. I think one of the things we were talking about earlier was that I don't think people necessarily say, and I think you have to say, we need a female creative director here. I think in some ways we've been sort of overdoing it, so we just need talent. Well, sometimes you have to make it a conscious choice. We need a female creative director. That opens the door. Then when the female creative director is hired, then it's all based on merit and talent. But I think because of the balance, because we are 97% versus 3%, I think you have to force it. And I'm seeing, now I have a more global purview. Like, I have to force it. Hire a female creative director. Really? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely needs to be more deliberate now. And I just got an email from a former colleague a couple days ago saying, we have no women in technology. I see you're doing this conference, Jeff. That's pretty cool, man. Where am I going to find the women to work in IT? Where am I going to find the women who are going to code these things? And I think, as we see this industry colliding more with technology, as it well should, that's another area where it's like some very deliberate moves are going to have to be made to sort of open the doors and say, hey, look, you can make stuff. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can make amazing things, and this is where you can do it.
And that's not just because we have to be nice and fix the balance. It's also because diversity and more perspectives bring better creativity. So it's good for our business. It's not because we're nice. It's because we're supposed to be smart. And we have. That's the only thing we can do.
I think the clients too. I mean, if you start looking at your client roster, I think the clients, frankly, are ahead of the agencies in a lot of respects, having more strong women. And I think you're right, PJ. I think you're going to get stuff that you wouldn't see before unless you had something that was different.
Okay. Well, I think this is the end of the girls on stage portion, and then we'll move on to
I think we called it the Love Fest.
the Love Fest. Sorry, girls on stage sounds a little racy. Thank you guys.
Great job.
Okay. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, now it's going to get really cutthroat. So we'll start with Rob. So why'd you promote me?
Well, I think again it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I saw stuff. It was I guess the men are visual. Yes, visual. You had beautiful ideas, and so first it was an idea thing. Then I think the second thing was your work ethic. And again, it goes back to deliberate was the word I was looking for. For some reason, I couldn't find it, so thank you. Deliberate, yes. Let's find female creative directors, but you earned it all on ideas and on grit and on resilience and all this stuff that we value in creative people.
Scott? Have you ever promoted someone because they were a woman?
I haven't. We promoted Sean because she was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think being a woman was part of her fantasticness. Now, kind of getting back to some of the things Rob mentioned, our agency is very gender diverse, very racially diverse, incredibly so, and none of my doing. But yet, in that environment, I found myself kind of looking to people, to women, to Mexican Americans, to African Americans, in a different way than I had when I worked in a less diverse agency. And once I got there and I saw it, just basic, for lack of a better term, it's just more fun. It is just more fun. There's a million reasons to have a diverse environment, but it is way more exciting. And once I got there, it's like I will not go back. And now I'm at a point, and I have before talked to recruiters. And sometimes I don't put it in writing, but I'll say, okay, do you have any lady writers? Do you have any African American art directors? Because it's more exciting. And once and it's not of my doing. Sean is her own success by far. But once I felt it and saw it, and it's like I'm never going back.
So sometimes, I hear a lot of people talk about there's female accounts and there's male accounts and there's girl projects and boy projects. And, I'm sure in your history, women have come to you, maybe complained about it, said, why'd you put me on this? I mean, can you share any of that experience, or if that hasn't happened? And how do you feel about male versus female accounts? Do you feel like you need to cast for different clients, different projects? Just a question.
It's kind of funny to think about that with Jamie, thinking of Jamie, because now she runs everything that happened in San Francisco. So it's kind of a funny question. But I've seen myself in situations where I feel like I need a woman to do this. I don't feel that that's a problem to imagine that you need a woman or a man or someone with any particular background to do something. I think the problem is the other way around. It's typecasting that creative as a person that can only do that. Fact is, when you mix things up, it's pretty amazing when you mix someone that is meant to that is going to nail it because he or she understands the target audience, with someone that doesn't even get it. That combination, that diversity on a smaller scale is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think what I saw as the most sort of awesome example of talent development was the time I spent at Digitas, actually. We had a very diverse group of creative technologists working together. Some were designers, some were coders, and as such we got to consult across the whole agency for quite a long time. And it was sort of a talent pool. And younger people would come in and they'd get exposed to every brand that we were working on. And eventually they sort of figured out what they were good at and who they had chemistry with. And I think exposure is critical. So yeah, pigeonholing is bad. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, I've never thought about, okay, here's a female team, we should put them on this. Actually, I've learned though, I've looked at work. We did a spot for Chevy with Mary J. Blige. And Sean and her partner, also a young lady, worked on it. And I did notice that when we looked at all the concepts, the ones I liked more tended to be a little more in the sort of punchline, like the Bud Light humor. And what we went with, that I said, you guys go ahead, you understand more than I do, was a much better spot. And it just had a better understanding of Mary and a better understanding of Mary's community. I've actually we had a pitch where my female partner and I worked on it, and in hindsight, I would have gotten a female art director to team her up with, just because they had a better handle on it. So it wasn't like typecasting, like, you're a woman, this is a woman's account. It's just sort of an intuitive thing. They would have had a better, but normally I've never, ever, because obviously when you're a group creative director or you're an ECD of a smaller shop, you have 3 or 4 accounts.
Right.
And you don't have the luxury of
Casting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of brought up the humor, Bud Light. There's sort of a myth that women aren't funny, you know. Current culture tells us the opposite with Kristen Wiig and everybody else, but have you encountered that? I mean, what do you think of that, honestly, I guess is the question.
I think, you know, Bridesmaid, that film probably did more to advance female comedy than anything in recent time. I mean, I didn't even know you guys did number 2, so I think that was, I guess, helpful.
Just daisies.
No, I think you're right with Kristen Wiig, and I think Wiig, whatever, and I think Tina Fey, and I think Amy Poehler. I think what's good now is that pop culture is seeing female comedy. I can't pinpoint it in advertising. I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit sleepy right now after the turkey sandwich I had for lunch, but I do think in our business, I'm not sure we're seeing the exuberance that we're seeing in Hollywood from female writing. I don't know, maybe there's an example I'm just missing off the top of my head, but I'm not feeling it. And that's not to say that you're not funny. I think, you know, you guys, you know, you are funny.
Well, the other side of that question too is, isn't shit just getting a little serious sometimes? I mean, it's a very serious business. People are very, very interested in it, right? And are very interested in our careers and our career development, and especially with younger people that I was working with. It just seems like, you know, it's like life or death a lot of times, and it just isn't. So you gotta, you know, if you don't want it to feel like that, you can change that, and everybody can be more funny and have more fun.
And also too, it's like, just because men think something is funny doesn't make it funny.
Really?
And so we need to I mean, and this goes across the board, we need to stop judging women based on, like Cindy said, we need to stop judging women in a male-oriented business world. But I do think, you know, internet and you know, content and long-form content that we're seeing that is fantastic, you know, 90-second, you know, we're getting out of that sort of Super Bowl Bud Light formula, but to a short answer, yeah, women can do damn funny stuff, but I think the new world of internet content is great for women. And I follow about 500 women on Twitter who are hilarious.
So a more broad question, what should female creatives do more of or less of? PJ, maybe?
I can start. So I think that I would say more on the less side. There is I strongly believe that this is the best time in history of advertising to be a female creative. Things are not the way they're supposed to be, but I think that the generation that is now on the ECD level, I remember being this generation wants it to be more diverse, and is a generation that doesn't have the prejudice or the horrible opinions that we've heard from some of the guys that came before us. It's a group that wants it to happen, but you're going to need to help us as well, because we were not raised professionally by people that did that too. So we are probably the first ones doing that. You're the first generation that is being raised to that position as well. So we're going to need to coach you as the same way that you're coaching us, and you're going to need to go and build the next one. But it's the biggest opportunity that you guys have, that you girls have, The guys and girls in Portuguese, English, I get messed up. But it's the most incredible moment that we have in the industry to make this app actually happen, because it's something that we all want to do on that side, on this side, or with no sides whatsoever.
You know what I think what would help? Just in hearing what PJ's saying, there's not enough myth making or iconography. I mean, as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about Mary Wells. I mean, she was a bigger rock star that there could have been in our business. We need a documentary on these great women in our business, like Phyllis Robinson. Again, just the Mary Wells book, her whole story. I mean, she was incredible. And I feel like coming out of this, we almost need art and copy for girls. Mm-hmm. You know, we need the female stories, because we got brilliant stories from Lee and from Hal Riney, but we didn't get the women of that era, and there have been so many good ones.
Yeah, I've met a bunch of them just the last couple days.
Well, you follow 500 on the internet, so I'm sure.
Well, we need to point people to stuff outside the business too. You know, I watched a Joni Mitchell documentary last month. It blew my mind. You guys ever heard Joni Mitchell speak?
She's Canadian.
Of course.
I didn't know that.
It's unbelievable. You gotta look at where you're setting the bar. You can set the bar within the industry, and that's important. You gotta know your business. But I set the bar when I was 6 years old, and that bar was Paul Stanley. I wanted to be a rock star, and I don't think I've measured anything I've done by anything other than that since. I think you got to look at everything that you love and use that to set the bar for where you want to be.
PJ, you mentioned coaching women and women sort of coaching you back on how to get them to those levels. Are there things that you've learned from Jamie, or that you feel like you've learned and tailored the way that you manage superpower female creative directors based on your experience that's changed?
I'll go out of the Jamie relationship for a second, because I learned something very interesting recently. I have a friend that used to work with me in my old agency a long time ago, and she worked on lots of big corporations. Now she left to start a business that is just about coaching women to go through corporate world. And she was asking me, she was trying to get like a name to her company, to her consultancy. And she told me one thing that is very interesting. She said, because of the way that things have been, once you find that good relationship, once a company or a boss or a mentor or whatever, but mostly an organization gives a woman the elements that they need to thrive, it creates in her so much gratitude for getting that opportunity, and therefore in the company so much gratitude for having someone that is so passionate about what she's doing. That it's an amazing cycle. That relationship creates gratitude all around, and it's worth the investment. Mm-hmm. Of time and energy. Is like one of the most amazing experiences that you can get.
Anyone else want to add, or you want? Okay. So I guess another question about mentorship. What do you think holds back male CDs from mentoring women? Obviously, you guys are different, but.
Yeah, I think everybody is, but I know that for me it was, my first response would normally be just opportunity, because especially working in creative technology on the digital side, it's been a slow, steady influx of more women working with that. But I would say, what I've learned over time is that it's earning that trust in an environment that doesn't necessarily promote that easily. And the more dysfunctional your agency, the more sort of old school boys club and top down it feels, the harder it is to earn that trust, not just with women, but I think just anybody who's sort of supposedly subordinate to you. How do you put yourself in a good space to build that chemistry? And I think that, and I referenced this earlier, I think that in these sort of more traditional agency environments where promotions are driving so much of the dialogue between you and the people that you're managing, and you're just trying to escort them up this imaginary ladder, it's very hard to earn the trust that you need to be a good mentor. And I think that's why this was said earlier, you've got to break out of the business space as quickly as you can and get to the real stuff that will glue you together.
I think in the past, what has held some male creative directors back is some appearance of impropriety, and because there was impropriety. And I worked at agencies where the ECD saw the agency and the department as a dating pool. And so obviously...
Or mentor.
Right. And not necessarily a nasty, terrible thing. It was just how it was. And obviously if this person is spending a lot of time with this young lady that's, you know, who knows what's going on. And that was, hopefully that's way in the rearview mirror. I don't think it's that way. It certainly hasn't been that way in agencies I've been in the last 15 years. But I do think it comes down to comfort zone. And it's not overt sexism, it's just, and I wrote this in a blog post a while back, for so long, creatives in our business have had a look. And they've usually been male, and a lot of them have goatees and, you know, messenger bags. And, you know what I mean? There's just that kind of creative, this is how creatives look. And also there's a male, you know, somebody was talking about earlier today in the male bonding thing, and that's just more comfortable, you know, and women are different, and they do have a different rhythm, and it is a stretch. It is a kind of going outside of your comfort zone to reach out and figure out what their language is and what their tempo is, but it's worth it. You have to stretch. Well, guess what? You've stretched, you've grown, and now you have a better department. So.
I think there's also there's just a general management challenge, which is if you look at they say one of the best managers ever was Ernest Shackleton. So this is the guy who had to cross the tundra and get his men back to safety. And there's a bunch of books written on Shackleton, and one of the principles was that he didn't show any favoritism, right? Everybody was treated quite equal, and we come from a pirate culture, you know, from a Jay Shyatt originated in a pirate culture of equality and promotion on merit. So if you suddenly start taking an interest in someone and mentoring someone, you're suddenly breaking, well, are you showing favoritism? Was I showing favoritism to Xanthi when she was, you know, working with us? And it was something, frankly, I did actually struggle with, because I did spend a lot of time trying to go, no, you guys we have to be equals here till you rise, and then, you know, we follow the rising of ideas, not so much the rising of people. So I think there's just an inherent challenge that mentoring may be seen as favoritism.
Was it something that was in your head, or actually you're seeing that in other people's reactions?
I don't know if I was seeing. I think I was very conscious about it, not trying to be that guy. You know, I mean, I guess in some ways when you do mentor someone, you do show favoritism, but how is it without favoritism? You know,
still rip my work off the walls sometimes.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
it wasn't like everything was a pass.
I don't know. Maybe it was just too much overthinking, but.
But isn't that chemistry? I mean, that's what I reference a lot of times. Like, you got to look for chemistry if you want to have good creative relationships. If you want to be a good mentor, if you want to be honest, it's chemistry. And calling it that, recognizing it for what it is, and rewarding people for taking the deep dive when they find it, I think that's where it's at.
But again, just to play on this for just 1 second, you know, Xanthi had a partner, and I liked her partner a lot too. She was a great writer, great idea person, but I didn't feel the same pull to mentor her partner, you know, and but I had to, in some way, treat them equal, but at the same time, you know, I wasn't really treating them equal. Like, there's a thin line between therapy and conference. I'm telling you, stuff is coming out here, Xanthi. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
We're not there yet. Maybe later.
Hold hands first.
We're in the woman cave. I like that.
So what do you think the cost, you know, obviously it's called 3% conference, how dire is the need to correct this imbalance in this ratio, and how personally committed are you to changing it?
I think we're all here because we think it's important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't have a woman in their life that made all the difference in the world? And you know, if you look at it through that lens, this isn't about advertising, guys. This is just about all business. It's about all facets of our lives, right?
I think it's a big part of it.
Have clients ever commented on or asked for females to be in meetings or present on brands? And how do you address that if, for example, you don't feel like that creative is the right person for it? Have you encountered it on the client side?
You know, I don't think I've ever had a client say, why aren't there women here, or can we get a female team? Well, I have gone to a pitch. It wasn't like a big pitch, it was sort of one of those kind of
Chemistry
capabilities things, and CEO, myself, sort of a strategic consultant, the three of us, we flew up and met, and you know, we walk in, we're all excited, and there are two women at the table. And it was just sort of one of those things that we didn't think about until we sat across from two women, and we hadn't, and it wasn't, oh, we need to do this politically correct thing and we need to color by the numbers. No, it's just, we're clearly a little tiny boys club by default.
You could have said, well, yeah, I was just at the 3% conference. And,
PJ?
Now, I've never heard that directly from a client of mine, but I've seen, as Rob said, I think that clients are way ahead of agencies on that side, and I've seen clients that were like running a review kind of tell me, so no, I'm kind of talking to these agencies, that agency, what do you think? And I'm kind of giving them kind of my opinion as a friend, and say, yeah, but that guy's, it's just a bunch of guys. I want a place that is more diverse. Mm-hmm. And so whether there are women on the client side, or kind of on the top, or like CMO level, for example, or not, mm-hmm. that seems to be a real concern. I don't think they are voicing it that much, mm-hmm. at least not when they talk to us, but I've seen that conversation happening.
Okay. What is one female creative, either in history or, you know, excusing your mentees, that you admire, and why? And do you, of your sort of heroes in advertising, or any of them females?
You know, I'm not really what you'd call a typical ad person. I don't follow people that way. But I mentioned Joni Mitchell earlier, and you should hear that, because if ever there was somebody who is deep when it comes to communications and communicating to people en masse, and who's sort of, you know, gone through what I think a lot of women go through in the worst goddamn business you can imagine, the music industry, in the period that she came up in it. Look into Joni Mitchell, and you'll find a whole new layer of things to get angry, excited, and happy about.
I was, my first agency, I was recruited by a male group CD under a male ECD, but they teamed me up with a creative director who was a lady, and she was about 40. Her name was Liz Fitzgerald. Liz, if you're out there in the world. She had like an 18-month-old baby, and they just threw us together, and she was great. She was just great. And I hadn't thought about what she meant to me until I started getting ready for this, and she really kind of just recalibrated how I just thought, because she just didn't have any rules. She was just Liz. She wasn't girly, she wasn't a tough guy, she was just a great creative. She was a lot of fun. She was really firm, and she just didn't, you couldn't really sum her up. She was just Liz, and she sort of, she didn't try to fit in, she didn't stand out, she just sort of had this world. It was like a world around her. Mm-hmm. And I got to be part of it, and it's hard to explain, but looking back, I can see how it shaped how I perceive, and maybe hopefully how I'm a little more appreciative of women teams and women leaders, because right out of school, I got to sort of be under her wing a little bit.
well, I was just thinking as you guys were talking, I was lucky. I got to work with a lot of great women. I worked with one of my first bosses was a woman named Roz Green in New York. She was fantastic. And she taught me a lot. And, in fact, I'm thinking about her right now, because she would be proud of me. Like, yeah, put on a suit. Like, come on. Let me sit up a bit. We got a client meeting. She was very pragmatic that way. But I mean, I worked with great women at an agency called Team One. I mean, I worked with Denise Crandall. I worked with Laura Sweet. Fantastic people. I worked with Rebecca. Fantastic. I met my wife there. She's amazing. So that was really good. And I realized through my time at working at Chiat in LA, I mean, we had a lot of strong women. Margaret Keane was fantastic. I put her on our biggest piece of business. Blake Kidder. All kinds of great people. The president of the office, Krista Bianchi, I worked very closely with her. So I feel like I got very lucky because I was always around really strong women. And I think the funny thing is, though, is that I never really thought, oh, I'm working with a woman. I was working with somebody who was great.
Yeah.
And I think we do have to get our radars up, though. But those are all people who kind of spring to mind to tell me, who's great.
Yeah.
Now, when my first job in advertising, I remember kind of the creative director at the agency was in Brazil, so you guys don't know her or the work that she did. It's a woman called Camila Franco, and I was really bummed when I joined and she left 3 months later because she wanted to take care of her kids, and I felt like I didn't understand that decision. So how can someone that brilliant just leave that behind? And kind of later I've seen a lot of other brilliant women doing that, but at the same time I met some incredible women, some of the most creative, inspiring, some of the hungriest and exceptional creators I met. I had opportunity to work with our females. There's a girl called Susanna Applebaum in New York. She just left Anomaly, but she's like amazing, one of the most amazing ever. Fernanda Romano, that she's at Naked. There is Shira Bogart, that she's speaking here at AKQA. I mean, there's some of the hungriest and most inspiring ones that I would hire at any time, or would work with, or would work under any time if we have a chance to be together again.
And then another question for you guys, and we have just a few more minutes. Have you ever encountered, being with, all males in a room, something is degrading is said about a woman, that coworker, your mentee, whoever, and what have you done to kind of change the conversation? You're all progressive guys, great guys. How have you personally been challenged? Because obviously you see women as equals, you look at them for their ideas. And how have you kind of changed the flow of something when you've seen something go wrong and someone, hey, that girl's hot or whatever, and it just, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can tell you, I definitely missed a lot of opportunities to stand up and be the guy to say, hey, that's fucked up. That's not cool. Why are you saying these kinds of things? And most of the time what happens instead is I just get this really awkward, uncomfortable feeling, and I decide I don't like that person very much, and then I ignore them. It's like that's my method of filtering the world, but it's like when somebody makes a racist comment or something, it's like, I'm already done with you, but looking back, when I was working in agencies, there were lots of opportunities, both in closed environments where it was just the guys, and in environments where maybe the girls were falling into the trap, that is set in those places. I should have been more vocal, and now that I'm older and have kids and stuff, if I ever find myself in that environment again, I hope to do a better job. I think that's what I would aspire to. So I have more missed opportunities than opportunities that I took. What about you guys?
Yeah, I would. I've missed some opportunities as well. What I don't like when you hear like a stereotypical comment or a sexist comment, first and foremost, I just don't like cliches and stereotypes. They're boring. If the best you can do is have some tired sexist statement, and so when I encounter it, I just kind of come from there, and I'm just like, really? I'll just say, really? That's what you got?
Yeah.
You guys, what? No, no, but that's the best you can do. Really? We're creative. We're sitting here, and that's what you got. Okay, great, okay.
Next.
Yeah. I just go #awkward.
Totally.
I think the good news is that those, I don't know, that those I'm not in those kind of conversations much anymore. I don't know what happens, but I hopefully there's some evolution. We're not like a chub fish, which is not evolved, but
I will say,
Chubfish.
I think what you get now is sort of more subliminal or unconscious. So they're not outward sexist comments. You hear these really subtle distinctions that are imperceptible, but that you have to watch out for. And so as a leader, you have to say, well, wait a minute, I don't think you're being objective, so it's not really sexism, because it's very nuanced, and sometimes it's personality, and you just have to say, well, wait a minute, kind of, you're not being objective here. We need to kind of rethink that.
I don't think I have been in any conversation like that during the last 10 years, probably. And I haven't seen myself in a very truly uncomfortable position. I've seen once a person say, a girl was going on maternity leave, and they were like, yeah, we need to make cuts, so she's going out, let's cut her because she just got pregnant. What the fuck, if you're just gonna leave that and I'm out, you're just gonna need to fire me. It was the one moment in my career that had to happen, but they had to cross a big line of outrageous. But other than that, I don't think, again, that this belongs to this generation anymore. I think it may have happened the guys before us, but it just doesn't happen. That animosity, the enemy line is, right now, is a imaginary line.
I would just challenge you guys, because you're all in leadership positions. So a lot of people are performing a little bit to you and showing you their best sides. So I know that it's still going on. It's not gone.
Let me tell you a story. So there was a meeting here in San Francisco, ECDs from like lots of agencies. They just kind of debate on creative work, and we got together. They were kind of meeting at my place, and when everyone got in there, we just looked around, and everyone was like, "Isn't it embarrassing that we're all men?" And this is a horrible thing for us. Mm-hmm. When ECDs and CCOs get together, most of the discussion today is, it's horrible that we're all men. Mm-hmm. We need to fix these things. And this is as honest as it can be. It's no one is watching, no cameras on, no audience, and this is the discussion that happens. So it is right now the biggest thing, one of the biggest conversations that's happening in the industry.
It's a business need.
Yeah, of course there's some jerks out there, but I'll say that people that are trying to, that have to make decisions and push the industry forward, have that as part of that agenda. That's why we are here. That's why other people wish that they were here as well to participate on that.
Well, something that Rob has brought up in some of our email discussions is it's not just enough to be supportive and to be involved. There still are too few women in college programs for advertising. There are too few women entering advertising. We have to go out of our way, not to recruit people and to keep an eye out. Now, we work across the street from UT, and they have a great advertising program, and the majority of portfolios are from young ladies. Mm-hmm. But we do have to go out of our way to recruit more women and keep the pipeline.
And beyond that, just on the converse part of that, the award show, you go into any award show, you guys have all judged a ton of them. I'm starting to judge a few more. And, it's mostly men in these rooms, and a lot of work, doesn't seem to make it to the final selection because there's a lot of elbowing and, haha, that's funny, and the girls' work isn't seen, or the female, I should say female brand, that's not really right, but just a different tonality. So I guess I would urge all of you to, of course you're doing this because you're evolved, but to keep your eyes open for, different styles of work, which you probably already do anyway, but just something that we've kind of been talking about, the 3% down in LA too. And one last thing, one piece of advice that you'd give female creatives out here in the room.
Okay, I'll start with that just because you're talking about award shows. Award shows are bullshit. The ladder is bullshit. It's all bullshit. All right? The only thing that matters is what you have inside you that you care about. For me, I'm a guitar player. That's pretty much where the creativity sort of lives, and the artwork that I do and the UX work that I do and the work that I do with Rebecca, it all sort of connected to that. And I made sure to make lots and lots of time for guitar playing, and that's the thing that makes me a good musician, which is the thing that made me a good collaborator. You have to make time for that stuff, chasing awards, chasing promotions. We're here to talk about how to make more room for women in leadership positions, and it is important for all the obvious reasons that are on the table and all the nuanced ones too. But don't let that get in the way of the thing that really matters, which is that the craft that you have inside of you, whether you're a writer or an art director. And I think we got to start looking at the technologists too, and sort of use that as a way to bring more women in. User experience design, these are these are open doors, but you gotta have something you love, and you gotta keep that in focus the whole time, because that's the thing you'll have for the rest of your life, whether you're in advertising or not.
Good job.
I would just say follow your instincts. You know, someone told me your instincts are never wrong, and you got to stick to them. And you know, a lot of us, and certainly women, you know, we want to be liked. And I went to school with a guy who had a thing up in his room, and it said, "I do not expect everyone to like me. In fact, there are some people I would think less of myself if some people did. And not everybody's going to like you, and you know what? That's great. So go out there."
Well, I would say be like Xanthi. I mean,
It's a little awkward.
I'm trying to think, what advice am I
Hashtag.
going to give you? I mean, you know, the work comes first. Let the ideas rule, and don't take any shit. That's what you do.
Right. I think that the best thing, just even inspired by the work that Jamie has been doing, I disagree with the whole thing with the awards not mattering. I think it's a great discipline to put yourself against other great stuff and see how competition works. And I think that's a big deal. Women can compete. They just don't have to compete doing this, trying to pretend to be a man. Mm-hmm. That woman that was sitting here, she won 3 Grand Prix at Cannes and an Emmy, doing an absolutely romantic story that ran during the World Cup, right? That you guys, that's that big event that happens everywhere outside the U.S. But she did a romantic story that during the World Cup, or actually that one was the Olympics, you know that one. During the Olympics, and was the most watched branded content against stuff that Nike was doing, Adidas was doing. So she, instead of trying to compete in men's term, she did what she felt was right for her sensibility for 2 technology companies. It was one of the most successful campaigns of the last year. So I think you should compete, you should win, you should beat the crap out of us. But do it in your way, not the way that you think that we would do if we were in your shoes. You have much better looking shoes anyway.
Bravo. Thanks, you guys. Cool. So, you're off the hook.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.